afternoon, everyone. Would like to thank you for taking our time to attend our this online information session today. Today, we will be looking at studying in Canada, choosing the right school and program if you want to come to study in Canada. My name is Wisdom Akpakige. I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and I'm the principal consultant with Dow Immigration Consulting Services Limited here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm duly registered with the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants here in Canada. That's the regulatory body for immigration services here in Canada. I'm also a member of the Canadian Association of Professional Immigration Consultants. You can see my membership details displayed on this slide. I'm also a licensed foreign worker recruiter in the provinces of Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan. Today, we're going to be looking at this very interesting topic. As many of you that will be thinking of coming to Canada to study. Now, Canada, I'd just like to give you this bit of background information. I know many of us here might know this information, but just bear with us. Canada has a total population of approximately 38.01 million people as at 2020. Our capital city is Ottawa. Even though our biggest city is Toronto, that's where most of our financial and economic activities would be taking place. Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories, and you would see them in the next slide, and has a land area of 9,984,670 square kilometers. The country is the largest, is the second largest country in the world. I beg your pardon. I think Russia would be currently the largest country. And life expectancy in Canada is about 82.7 years for both sexes. Our national day, which would be our Independence Day, is 1st of July. So every 1st of July, the country celebrates its National Day. We usually refer to it here in Canada as Canada Day. It's a big celebration, by the way. I did mention that I'll show you a map of the country so that you can see where all the provinces are and where the territories are. And you, as we move along in this session, you'll see how all of these come into play and how they matter in choosing where you want to either study or stay in Canada. So we do have 10 provinces, like I mentioned, and I'm just going to name them from west to east. And we have British Columbia as the westernmost province, followed by Alberta, next Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec. We have New Brunswick. We have the province of Nova Scotia. I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So yeah, Nova Scotia. And we have Prince Edward Island. And finally, we have the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. So those will be the 10 provinces we have here in Canada. And it's the 3 territories will be Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. Yes, you can see those are like the northern parts of Canada. Now, education. One of the good things about education in Canada is we have free education for children below 18 years of age. So if you're coming to study in Canada as an adult and you have children that you want them to accompany you to study in Canada until they turn 18, they would have free education. We also have a very high quality education for both citizens, permanent residents, and foreign nationals. So the quality of education is the same for anybody that is studying in Canada, whether you're a citizen, you're a permanent resident, or you're a foreign national that has just come in as an international student. The government of Canada spends more per capita on education than any other country in the world. Yes, you can. That's a verifiable claim there, and that makes studying in Canada very, very special and beneficial. I'd like to run us through a step-by-step guide if you have the intent to come to Canada to study. What are the things you need to look at? What are the things you need to put in place? What are the, what are the sort of things you need to consider so that you can achieve your goal to study here in Canada? So I'll break them into different steps, and I'm going to just run through all the steps here and then eventually pick them one after the other. You need to have a goal and a plan. Obviously, if you want to achieve anything in life, you need a goal and a plan. You need to choose your course and the institution that you want to study in. You need to take a language proficiency test if that is required. Canada is a bilingual state, so our official languages would be English or French. So there's usually language requirement for countries that don't have either of these two languages as their language of previous instruction or the language of the country that they're coming from. Step 4, you need to apply to the universities or the colleges that you want to study in. Step 5, you need to apply for a study permit. So a lot of times people confuse these two things. There are two different things. So getting an admission into a school is totally different from getting a study permit. The school is responsible for accepting you and providing you with an admission, but it is Immigration Canada that would eventually issue you a study permit to come into Canada to study. The last step would be travel and study time. That's usually the first part, which is travel, is like the fun time that a lot of persons get really excited. They're traveling to Canada, yay, everything is good and we're coming to Canada to study. Now, there's the study time, obviously. I'm going to take each of these steps and dig a little further into this step so that we can see what we have in them. Also, step 1, have a goal and a plan. I guess you have to answer some of these questions. Why study in Canada? Why do you want to study in Canada? What is your short or long-term goal? Your short or long-term goals? I mean, what do you want to achieve in life? How is that connected to Canada? All of these things you need to answer or put into perspective when you're applying for your visa, because these are some of the things that the visa officer would eventually consider before they would approve your visa, your study permit to come to study in Canada. So again, why do you want to study in Canada? What are your short and long-term goals? Have you considered locally available options? I mean, if you're in a country and you want to study accounting and you have lots of institutions or schools in your local, in your country that offer accounting, the question then becomes, why do you want to travel thousands of miles all the way to Canada to come and study the same accounting? You want to show that you've considered all of that before making your plan and making up your mind that you want to study in Canada. Do you have the resources to finance your education? Remember, as you're coming to Canada as a foreign, as an international student, you'll be paying what in Canada we refer to as the international differential. So you'll be paying fees that will be higher than Canadian citizens and permanent residents. So do you have the means to pay for this? Next thing you want to talk about, do you have ties to your home country? Is there anything that would want to make you go back home when you are done with your study? Now, this is a requirement. I know people would argue that there are legal routes for you to transit into permanent status after your study in Canada. Yes, immigration law has provided for this, but at the point of making your visa application, you would have to demonstrate that your intent for visiting Canada is only but for a temporary purpose, which means you have the intention or plans to return back to your country or to leave Canada at the end of your study. So you want to demonstrate those ties. Ties could include your family ties, Economic ties. For example, if you have an employment, they're giving you a study leave for 1 year. That's a very strong tie. It shows that you have a continuous employment that has given you a 1 year study leave to go and study. So you have something you're going back to resume with after your study. That's an economic tie. You have landed properties, buildings, your economic situation is really good back home. Sometimes you have things to inherit from your parents. You're the first child or you're the only child. All of these can passport ties to your home country. Again, I've not mentioned everything. There are different ties that you can have to your home country. Another thing you want to consider, do you have previous travel history? Now, you might want to argue to say, why do I need previous travel history? Now, every country expects you to be law-abiding and follow whatever you've been told to do while you're in that country. No country wants you to come into country and do whatever you want to do, even if it's against the law of the country. So one way that you can demonstrate that you would be law-abiding is to show that you've had instances where you left your home country and nothing happened in those trips. So for example, if you've traveled to another country and you stayed for a month or 2 weeks on vacation and there was no criminal case or anything that you did while you were in that country, then you can use that as a point to tell the visa officer that, well, I was in so-and-so country last year or 2 years ago, and I was law-abiding. That would speak to the fact that I will be law-abiding when I eventually come to Canada. Now, the last thing that you would need to consider is inadmissibility to Canada. This is a very broad topic. I think we would schedule another information session to look at inadmissibility because it is very broad. We've had sessions in the past where we looked at inadmissibility. So I would encourage you to check our YouTube channel. I think you would see that information session, the recording uploaded on our YouTube channel, so you can understand the full concept of inadmissibility. But I'll just touch on it very quickly. It means, are there reasons why you cannot be admitted into Canada? There are many things, many factors that can make you inadmissible to Canada. Criminality, medical inadmissibility, misrepresentation, and withholding of material facts. I'm just going to touch on each of these quickly before we move on. Like I said, if you want to understand the concept fully, you can jump on our YouTube channel and you'll see that session there. So for the very common one is misrepresentation and withholding of material facts. So when you're applying for any visas to Canada, they want you to disclose all material facts. What are material facts? Material facts would be anything that can affect the decision or can influence the decision of the visa officer. So for example, if I used to work before and I used to earn 10 million naira, for example, and I lost my job shortly before I came to Canada. That's a material fact, because if I had applied to say I earned 10 million and now I no longer earn 10 million, the visa officer might want to approve that application because of what I had said before. So they would want you to disclose that fact. Or, for example, I applied to another country for visa and they denied me the visa. And now I'm applying to Canada. The visa officer would want you to tell them those countries that you've been refused visa before, because that can influence their decision. And if you withhold those facts, the visa officer has the right to deem you inadmissible to Canada. Usually they'll give you a ban for 5 years for misrepresentation. So I'd like to encourage you, be very open when you're making your application. Don't withhold anything. Be open. It's better you say the things and explain them rather than hide them. Medical inadmissibility, quickly here. 3 things that the government of that government of Canada is particular about. They don't want a situation where you come into Canada and then the cost to manage your health situation becomes excessive. I know in 2020, 2021, that cost was just above $20,000 per annum. So if whatever ailment you have is going to take over 20,000 Canadian dollars to manage in a year, you might be deemed inadmissible on medical grounds. The other thing is they don't want you to come into Canada with highly contagious sicknesses or diseases. I think the last time I checked that list, two sicknesses or ailments that I saw there would be syphilis and tuberculosis, which are easily transmittable. So those two, you might become medically inadmissible to Canada. But again, I have used my words, I've chosen my words carefully. You may, so it doesn't mean that if you just fall into this category, you are inadmissible. You may be able to argue your points, get further notes from your doctor and argue with Immigration Canada for them not to deem you inadmissible to Canada. The last one I'm going to talk about today is criminality. So if you've had any convictions or anything in any competent court, then you might be deemed inadmissible to Canada on criminal grounds. I'm going to stop at that. If you need to know more, I encourage you to look at our previous information session. Step 2, choose your course and your school. You have to answer, what program do you want to pursue? When do you want to commence your studies? Usually, majority of people come to Canada in the fall, which would be in September. Now, there are many reasons people decide to come in September. For tropical countries or countries in, for example, Africa, that our weather can be very, very hot. You want to be able to come into Canada when it is not too cold. I mean, I know each time I tell people that in Canada, you can get up to minus 40 degrees. People are like, eh? And you live in Canada? I would say yes, because in Canada, generally, we say the weather is not bad. Your dressing is what is bad. So you dress for the weather. And if you put on the right dressing, then you'll just be fine. So for people that would rather come in September and then gradually dip into the winter temperatures, and they take time to acclimatize. Other times that you can resume is January, which is what we call the winter semester. Now, January is like the peak of winter, right? So it's like sometimes you might be coming from maybe plus 28 degrees from wherever you're coming from, and you're landing in the airport, there's snow everywhere, and the temperature is minus 30. So some people would find it a bit difficult to just adjust immediately. But again, many people do it, and they're just fine. So we have September, January. Some schools have provisions for what we call the summer, which would be anytime from May, June. Some start as late as July. But these are like the time that you can commence your studies. Other than this time, I don't think there are any popular time period that you can commence your study. But again, I don't believe this applies to PhDs 100%, because I think that's an agreement between you and your supervisors and the school. So you might be starting earlier or in between any of these steps. But what I just said would be like the 3 common terms that people resume. Now, the next question is, what province or territory would you like to study? There's a lot of consideration that you have to make here. One, the weather of that province. Even though Canada is a country, it has 10 provinces and three territories. I can tell you that the weather varies. I would say generally Canada is cold, but the weather varies from very warm Vancouver in British Columbia that it rarely even snows, to very cold cities in the prairies, some places like Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. So I mean, if you're putting weather as one of your considerations, you want to choose the province that weather will not be too crazy for you. Again, everything comes at a cost, right? So some of the provinces are more expensive to study in. Some of the provinces have more programs to transit into permanent status. So those are the things that you'd have to consider to determine, okay, I want this province, I don't want this province, and blah, blah, blah. Which institution do you think is the right fit for you? Now, if you've decided I want to go to this province, so every province would have options in terms of universities or colleges, excuse me, that you would be that you would have available as options for you. So you want to choose all of that. Again, these schools would have different tuition fees. If they're in different cities, will have different living costs. And the list is just endless. But you need to sit down and consider these things so that you can make the right decision for yourself. What is your budget? What is your budget? I think this is really the most important thing to consider, because even if you like the weather, you like the city, you like the school, if you don't have the money to pay for that expense, I don't think you will successfully achieve your goal. Again, people ask me every day, can't I work and make some money while I'm studying in Canada to offset some of these bills? Well, the truth is there's provision for you to work while you're studying, but there are some restrictions during term time. And I think that is 20 hours maximum out of campus work for a week. And that would be during term time. And outside term time, you can work without any restriction. However, I would like to encourage or advise that studying in Canada might be a lot different from what you're used to in your home country. So it's usually encouraged that your first semester, you try to reduce the amount of work or the hours you put into work so that you can see how the system is. You can get yourself a bit more comfortable and see how many hours you might be able to take out of your study to work. Okay. We will move on to step 3. Step 3, take a language proficiency test if required. You can see I said if required. Does your school require a language test? I know recently there has been a lot of uproars and people complaining that if the primary language in your country is English or French, you shouldn't really be required to take a language test. And a lot of schools are now, getting into compliance here to say, okay, yes, if your country is English speaking, then maybe you don't need to demonstrate proficiency in English language. But I would really encourage you to check with your school and ensure that you have that confirmation from the school that the test is not required. Now, what language test should I take? I think for academic, so it depends on the requirement of the school. There are broadly two ways you can demonstrate language proficiency. You can either demonstrate it for academic purposes or for immigration purpose. And like IELTS will have the academic test and the general test. So for the school, it depends on what your school is saying. If your school is saying is the academic version that is required, then you have to take the academic test. How should I prepare? Now, once you register for the test, you don't want to score below certain points because schools would usually tell you they want a minimum of 6 on all the 4 bands, or they'll tell you they're required. So you want to prepare well and ensure that you're meeting of the requirements of the school. Okay, step 4, apply to the school you want. You need to get all required documents. Usually, before you apply, they'll tell you a list of supporting documents. You need to apply, you need to get all those documents together, apply for your program of choice, follow up if necessary. Now that is very important. Follow up. Sometimes people just apply and they're waiting for the school to get back to them. You know, you really cannot underestimate the help of following up on your application. I've had instances where just sending a follow-up email, just increased or shortened the time that the school would respond, especially if you are getting pressed for time to apply for your visas. Remember that getting the school admission is just one of the requirements you need before you apply for your study permit. So if you're pressed for time, you want to follow up with them and let them know that based on your country of residence currently, it takes 3 months, takes 4 months, takes 6 months for you to apply for a visa, a study permit. So you're just following up with them just to check if there is any way they can assist you to reach a decision quicker. Again, you have to be polite. That's another thing I think we really need to learn, especially when we're under pressure. Sometimes we just forget everything and just, yeah, I've applied 10 years. What is happening with it? So that's not the best approach. You have to be polite, but just let them know what you're going through and politely ask them if there's anything they can do to help your situation. And I think 9 out of 10 times schools would really be empathic and to try to see what they can do within their powers. And the last step here will be receive your letter of acceptance. Whoa, that is what you want. So once you receive your letter of acceptance, you move on to the next step, which would be to apply for your study permit. Now, to apply for your study permit, obviously you need your letter of acceptance as one of the documents here. But before you apply for your study permit, you need to prepare your statement of purpose. So you remember all those things we talked about, the considerations you have to make, your ties to your home country, your previous travel experience, your admissibility to Canada, your considerations for local options, the reason why you want to study in Canada, demonstrating that you are financially capable to pick this expense, and telling your visa that it's a reasonable expense. What do we mean by a reasonable expense? Now, I need to explain this because a lot of time people have received refusals for their visa application, and the reason that the visa officer had said or given them is that the expense is not reasonable. So yes, if, for example, I'm just going to use a hypothetical scenario here, so it might be a bit of a stretch, but just understand the principle. So for example, I live in Canada and I earn $500 every month. That's my salary, $500 every month. And then I want to go for a study, and I check the tuition of that study and everything I'll need. The study is going to last for 1 year. And then I would need to pay 30,000 Canadian dollars. So you might be quick to say that expense is not reasonable. You are right, because I earn $500 as of today. In a year, I will be earning $6,000 Canadian dollars in a year, sorry. $6,000 in a year. And I want to pick an expense that is 30,000 Canadian dollars in a year. So you are right if you say that expense does not look reasonable. However, if I argue to say I currently work as a front desk officer, but with my new degree, I would become an executive. Again, I know I said I'll stretch things a little bit, but if I say I'll become an executive in that same company, and then I would be earning maybe 100,000 in a year, would you still think that expense is unreasonable? Maybe not likely, because once you finish, and even if you take a loan or whatever, and you get that credential, and you start earning 100,000 a year, then it will be very easy for you to pay off the 30,000 that you have spent for your study. So again, I stretched things a little bit, but I just wanted you to understand the concept of reasonable expense. So you want to detail all of that in your statement of purpose. The next thing is you want to prepare your financial documents. So how do you plan to pay? Sometimes you have sponsors. It could be parents, could be spouses, it could be anybody. You just need to demonstrate that you have that financial capacity and that the money is readily available. And now you need to complete your IMM forms. These would be the different immigration forms. If you are using an immigration consultant, there's a form for that, your study permit application form, your family form that has all the details of the family. There are about 4 forms that you would likely be completing to put in, if you want to put your study permit application together. And that's all what are grouped under what I call the IMM forms. Now, obviously, you need your letter of acceptance from the school, which we just talked about in the previous slide. Now, you need to include upfront medical and police reports if necessary. Now, police report is required that if you're above 18 years, that you get a police report for every country that you have visited or lived in for above 6 months or 180 days. If you're less than 80 years, if you're less than 18 years, maybe that will not be necessary. You can get away with that. But if you're coming into Canada for periods more than 6 months, it is usually expected that you do a medical examination just to show that you don't have any of these ailments, or you will not become you won't make excessive demand on public funds when you come to Canada. Usually this is not really looked at when you're applying for a visitor's visa, because that would only allow you in Canada for a maximum stay of 180 days or 6 months. Now, next thing, you have to submit your application. And after a while, you will receive an approval. Once you receive the approval, woohoo! It's time to travel and study. Now, make flight reservation. Don't wait until last minute. I'm sure everyone is aware of this. Don't wait until last minute before you make your flight reservation, because tickets will go high. Everybody's making reservation at the same time. You're paying more for what you can get cheaper. Even you're not even guaranteed that you'll get a seat in that plane, because everyone wants to travel. So it's always advisable to reserve your tickets earlier. The only thing I'll add to that is don't reserve your ticket before you get your study permit, because you want to be sure that you will get your study permit, or you have gotten the study permit before you start making those huge financial commitments. Next thing is you need to confirm border entry requirements. We've gone through a whole lot of different stages in terms of border entry requirements. With COVID in the past 2 years, I can't even start listing all the different requirements. But one thing I'll say to you is you want to always check to know what is applicable at the time. There were times if you're not double vax, you're not even allowed to come into the country. There are times that they're not saying if you're double vax, you still need to do like a 72 hours COVID test just to confirm that you are COVID negative. I think they've watered most of that down now, but it is very important that you check to know what those requirements are before you land. The next thing you want to do is to arrange your accommodation. This is a very huge, I know in some countries it's very easy, you just land, you just go somewhere, you get an accommodation, but this can be frustrating, especially in the bigger cities. Getting an accommodation might be more than what you think, what you were thinking it would be. So I'll encourage you to look at that on time and try to arrange your accommodation. prepare for your studies. Look at your curriculum. Look at what is required for you to study. Some people have co-ops attached to their study. What is co-op? Is internship. It's just another word for internship, for you to gain experience while you're studying. You know, look at all of that. Look at the requirements. You need to read up a few things before you come. Anything, this is my advice for many of my clients, anything you can do today, don't leave it till tomorrow, because tomorrow will bring its own problem. So any problem you can solve today, just try to solve them today and wait for the problem that comes with tomorrow. Maintain continuous contact with school. You don't just say, oh, I've gotten admission, I'll see you on Monday when we're resuming. Many things might be happening. You want to check and ensure that the school has your email, because usually they will push out correspondence if anything is changing or anything is happening. They want to keep all their students informed. So you want to ensure that your email is updated. If you're changing email, be sure you advise the school and everything is all looking nice and good. Arrive ahead of your scheduled start date. A lot of persons, especially people that haven't really traveled before, they may not fully understand the concept of jet lag. Yeah, trust me, it is something that you have to consider. I mean, I know a few persons that it's not an issue to them. They can land today and tomorrow they're up and running. But a few people like myself, the first few days when you land, you're here and you're not here, if you understand what I mean. You are sleepy, you're just, you know, dragging yourself for the first 1 to 2 or 3 or even 3 days. So you want to arrive ahead of time. I would say don't arrive earlier than 2 weeks before your start date, but between 2 weeks and 1 week, I think that's a very good time to plan to arrive, because if jet lag is an issue, it would have worn out in 3 days or so, and then you can then be yourself. For those of us that don't understand the concept of jet lag, if you're changing time zone, sometimes your body doesn't understand what's going on. I mean, you're living a country that is 5 hours or 7 hours ahead of the country that you're going. So it is 3 o'clock now in your new country, but your body only understands it to be 10 p.m. in the night. So your body is wondering why you are not yet in bed, because 10 o'clock you're supposed to be in bed. But again, this is just hot afternoon in your new country, and your eye is seeing all the goodies, and you want to keep your body awake, but your body is not adjusting. Or it is 2 a.m. in your new country, but that's like 8 o'clock in the morning in where you're coming from, and the body is supposed to be up and, you know, up and about, but it's 2 a.m. now. So the body is struggling to understand what's going on. Usually it happens to some people. So I don't know if I've explained jet lag well, but that is just like a little concept of jet lag, what people generally refer to as jet lag. Complete your studies. Again, I had mentioned before that studying in Canada might be a little different from what you are used to back home. So completing your study might be challenging, you know, but if you are well prepared, you will be able to surmount all the hurdles and complete your studies. Once you complete your studies, if you want to go back home to your home country, bravo, you're more than welcome to go back home to your home country. But there are also options that are available for you to transit into more prominent status in Canada. And it is usually before the completion of your study. I think it is smart for you to start looking at those options that are available so that you can start putting your ducks in a row so that you don't run into any unpleasant surprise last minute. So what are those options that are available for international graduates? I'll just run through them very quickly. So there's the post-graduation work permit. That is like what is available to every student that has, one, graduated in a designated learning institution in Canada that offers a post-graduation work permit. 2, you would have studied for at least 8 months. 8 months. If you study for less than 8 months, you will not be eligible for post-graduation work permit. If you study for between 8 months and 24 months, just under 24 months, which is 2 years, you will be eligible for a post-graduation work permit that is valid for the length of your duration. So I'll give a quick example. If I studied for 13 months, I'll be eligible for a post-graduation work permit that is valid for 13 months. If I studied for 19 months, my PGWP will be valid for 19 months. However, if I studied for 24 months and above, I will automatically be eligible for a post-graduation work permit that is valid for 3 years. So if you studied for 2 years, then you would get a post-graduation work permit for 3 years. People would ask me, why am I taking time to explain all of this? Oh, it's very important, because the post-graduation work permit, in my opinion, it's that bridge, that ladder that you don't need anything to qualify for other than the fact that you have studied in a school that is eligible for. You don't need to have an employment, you don't need to have money, you don't need to do anything. Now, it is that window that gives you some breathing space. I just finished studying. Oh, I need to breathe before I start pushing on other things. The post-graduation work permit will give you that window before you then start looking at, okay, what other options are available for me? Now, depending on how quick you are able to transit into those other options, your post-graduation work permit, the length of your post-graduation work permit will be the breathing space that you would have. So if you have like only 8 months, it means I can almost tell you that as soon as you finish your study, you better start running, because most of the programs we have in Canada here, again, even with the backlog that Immigration Canada is currently battling now, not many of them you'll be able to achieve under 8 months or under 6 months. So the earlier you start, the better for you. But the longer your post-graduation work permit is, the validity of your post-graduation work permit, the longer it is, the better it is for you, the calmer it will be for you to transit, because you're not under pressure, nothing is pushing you, there's no very strict timeline. Even though I would like to warn you at this point that even if you have a 3-year validity on your post-graduation work permit, don't wait until the last 6 months. Trust me, I've had clients that have come to meet me 3 months to their expiration. What do I do? And I usually ask them, but you had this for 3 years. What have you been doing? Why would you have to wait till 3 months to the validity before making these moves? Anyways, you don't want to be caught in that trap. What other options are available? There's a federal skilled worker program. I know many of us would know these. The Federal Skilled Trade Program and the Canadian Experience Class, all of these would be under what the very popular Express Entry system, where you are awarded points based on 6 different criteria, and then you get into a pool and you have a score in the pool, a CR score, and periodically there are draws to invite people to apply for permanent residence. I wouldn't go into any of these programs. We've done several videos on this program. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see all these videos there. There's the Quebec Skilled Worker Program and Quebec Experience Class. So Quebec does things a little differently. They don't really key into the federal program, even though they're a province in Canada, but they have their own specialized programs, and this would be the equivalent for the federal programs that we have. We have provincial nominee programs. We have 10 provinces. I'll exclude the province of Quebec here, since we already talked about our programs. But the other 9 provinces will have provincial nominee programs. And if you go into the different websites, you'll be able to see the requirements. There's a federal self-employed program. Again, I'm not going to go into any of these programs in detail here. I'm just going to highlight them. Anyone you're interested in, you can dig further to see how you can take advantage of those options. There's the Immigrant Investor Venture Capital class. There's the Home Child Care Provider Pilot and Home Support Worker Pilot. There's the Atlantic Immigration Programs. There's the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Program. There's Agri-Food Immigration Pilot Program. I mean, there are many other programs. This list is definitely not exhaustive for you to transit into a more permanent status in Canada. This would be all we have prepared to share today. I would like to thank everyone for taking our time to attend our information session today. We truly hope that you've learned one or two things from this session today. And to reach out to us in the future, we have our contact displayed here. Our phone number is +1 902 802 0512. Again, you can also reach us on WhatsApp. I'll encourage you to take a picture of this slide or write this information down. Our email address is info@dowimmigration.com, one word. Our website is www.dowimmigration.com. We also have presence across social media platforms. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And our handle is @Dow Immigration. We will encourage you to follow us there to stay informed with all our upcoming information sessions and any other information that we would be sharing to all our contacts. And I'd like to also let you know that this same time next week, I will be having another information session that will center on your study permit application. If you want to join us same time next week, you're more than welcome. Thank you very much. And until I see you again, have a good weekend and stay safe.